Series is a series of talks that are hosted here in the London Public Library, where researchers are Dr. Immaculate Namakasa, Dr. Immaculate Namakasa. Immaculate is a professor in the Faculty of Education, and Derek Tangredi. Derek Tangredi is in the Thames Valley District School Board, and he's a graduate student in the Faculty of Education. Our presenters tonight have partners in the Thames Valley District School Board and also in the London District Catholic School Board, also the London Public Library. There are 3 pages that I'd like to direct your attention to before we get started tonight. One is the feedback form. At the end of this evening tonight, if you could pick up a feedback form on the table over here. The title on it is How to Work with Children in Makerspaces, and let us know what you think of tonight's presentation and activities. The second page is a photo release. We'd like to take some pictures tonight, and we'll be posting those on the Faculty of Education website, and probably Thames Valley District School Board and London District School Board will be using those pictures as well. So if you would like to sign off on the photo release, then we would use your photograph. If you don't sign off on that, we would not be using your photograph. Finally, for the Community Speaker Series, we have an email sign-up list. And you'll also find that on the table over here. So if you would like to receive email notices of future community speaker talks, then please sign up with that. Okay, so tonight the MC for the evening is David Crothers, Learning Coordinator for Technology for the Thames Valley District School Board. So I'll turn things over to him now. Welcome, David.
I'm just going to move this podium maybe just a little bit closer so I don't feel so far away from you. All right, good evening, everyone. I want to begin with some thank yous. I want to begin by thanking Western University, and specifically Western Education, for offering this great opportunity through the Community Speaking Series. This event also would not be possible without the partnership of the London Public Library. A special thank you goes out to Lindsay and Alan, along with the entire staff for making this a reality. We also need to thank Western staff from the IT team, hospitality services for the amazing food and beverages, and special thanks to Jennifer Heidenham for her exceptional efforts leading up to this event. This day also would not be possible without the research and work completed by Dr. Immaculate Namakasa and Derek Tangredi. A very special thank you to our incredible speakers this evening. We're beyond fortunate to have such exceptional individuals here with us. One final thank you to our Western teacher candidates who are here leading a breakout session as well. This day is not possible without all of these collaborative efforts. Here is the agenda for the evening. Derek, nudge. Here's me. Okay. Here's our agenda for the evening. Okay, so we're going to start off with some introductions, then we're going to begin our Ignite talk shortly. Then we're going to have some amazing breakout sessions followed by the talks, and then we're going to close with some questions and some comments. Also, if any of you are on Twitter tonight, we encourage you to actively tweet about the event tonight, because this is going to create awareness of what is happening. The hashtags that you could use, that you could potentially use, is at the top there, Western EDU, and there's also some Twitter handles. If you could tag those as well, that would be great. And again, this is just to help spread awareness and help spread the message about what's happening here tonight.
Impromptu adjustments. So just again, just a quick series of thank yous again, just for everybody making this possible, especially for the people coming and traveling so far, especially with the conditions and the weather. So we're really appreciative of all of that. Again, I just want to reiterate what David said in terms of thanking both Western, the London Public Library, and the staff that he mentioned, along with Immaculate and our incredible team of presenters. This day really isn't possible without you, as well as the attendees who are here. So I just wanted to say that I'm super grateful, and I can't wait to hear what everyone has to share tonight. So thank you for coming. Another quick point, there are washrooms to the corner, and if there are any children here and they're looking to use some of the applications, and especially during the talks, there's a table at the back corner that has things for them to use and keep throughout the day. And there also is food and beverages just into this room as well, so you can please feel free to help yourself through the evening. And I'm going to turn it over to Mathews.
So again, thank you so much for braving the weather. And I'm going to take this chance to thank Derek Reddy for his ingenuity organizing this event and in helping us all get this event to what it is today. So, so we are here this evening and we are all part of the Maker Initiative. So we know that communities as well as governments and industry are rallying behind the increased participation in Maker initiatives. And this is only because of its promise that it has for education, especially for engaging children as well as adults. So, different Maker communities, and there's a variety of them, do utilize different tools and activities. And these include emerging technologies, but as well as some which are traditional, such as the cultural forms. Now, the activities also do lend themselves to different tools that the makers are inclined to do. We see a 3D printer there doing its job. So the tools themselves are also a variety of tools, and I'm only going to mention a few here. So design, cutting, and printing, such as with the maker here. Now, the tools also lend themselves to different frameworks. Now, I have Derek typing me here, so that I go on at a speed that is different from the speed that I usually go on when we're doing our meetings at the university. So, in terms of the frameworks, there's a variety of frameworks, and for some of them, we grapple with the big ideas, the objects to think with. Now, for others, it's designing solutions and prototypes for use to solve problems. And so the frameworks themselves relate to what we can engage students in doing. Like the creative making, students might be, or children might be doing artifacts. There's also modeling phenomena, real-life phenomena. Now, our work traces its path from Seema Packard, who's talked about constructionism, children working with objects to learn. And also another scholar who is an anthropologist here is Tim Oingold. For him, making is what humans have done. Making is inherently human. And it's breaking the boundaries. And for him, it's anthropology, architecture, the arts, 4 A's of making. Now, another person I would like to draw from here is a female, and that is Kafai. So Kafai talks about computational making. And she says computational making is about solving problems, immediate problems, but as well as computational participation. So we can engage children, and we do engage children in already made applications, but there is more. There is engaging them, and as we shall see later on, in immersive experiences so that they're able to think differently about the things they learn. And here I have one example, the geometry art in this case, that combines mathematics and art. So students are stamping a circle at different angles and also negative and positive directions. And here is another example too of robots and digital tangibles for elementary schools. And Oriana here would be the one that made one of the square, the robots painting for the square. So there is more to making than the already made. Students engage with their world and think about projects. Now this one is for middle school, so they are designing and they're designing screen objects, again, to engage with concepts and ideas. Now, they could be working with tangibles, and they could be working with cultural materials. So it's engaging with ideas for me, for intellectual, but sometimes it's for playful ends. So those hands are for teacher candidates at Western, this winter, working with computational making tools, sensors, and robots. So then, depending on the framework, we might want to analyze what's the benefit, what they learn. And this is an example for someone interested in concepts, math, computational thinking, and in the middle there were the emergent. So in computational making and making, it's the emergent, the learning to understand the world, the personally identifying with ideas, as well as developing a culture, an etiquette, and ethics of learning. So the spaces are there, different spaces, different events like the event today, but children develop identities of participation through these events. And us as adults and teachers and learners, we learn the pedagogies, like the pedagogies of experimentation, the pedagogies of engagement. Now this work that I do at Western and with the collaborators, most of whom are presenting here today, would not have been possible without the schools, the not-for-profit organizations that I do outreach in, as well as the teacher candidates and the assistants. And I would also like to thank my funders at Western, as well as the government funders. I do have some resources and there's information right there. Now at the end, there's going to be question and answers, and I'm happy to engage with everyone. Now Dr. Perry did talk about, and he's not Dr. Perry, but I am blank with this, Dr. Perry Klein did mention about the form. So this is about the PD sessions that we do for in schools, and also at Western, and also the feedback form which is at the table. So come give us some feedback, and if you want to sign up for the PD event, you're more than welcome to do that. So once again, thank you so much for coming in great numbers. This is amazing for a day and the roads which are like this outside. I so much look forward to the rest of the evening and to the rest of the sessions to see how making with children can be made possible in homes, in schools, more possible, in libraries, how it can be enhanced, as well as with adults and with youth. Thank you so much.
Not sure I need this or not, but I might as well use it. Making sure Derek is queued up here. While he's doing that, I'd just like to introduce our very first speaker of the evening. I'm not kidding when I say that when our next speaker leaves a room, it's rare not to hear someone remark that they'd like to have this individual as a colleague or a supervisor. His charisma, sense of humor, and deep understanding of mathematics instruction compels others to always put forth their best. Scott Armstrong is a learning supervisor for mathematics at TVDSB. He will be discussing mathematics and how important the foundational concepts we need children to know are developed through making, doing, and problem solving, and how all of this is necessary for the making culture in classrooms. Scott?
Oh, thanks, Derek, for very nice words. Of course, I've never done an Ignite before, so they put me on first so I can mess up big, and then that'll make everybody else feel really good and relaxed. So, I have a loud voice, so I'm just going to is that right? Because I think everybody will be able to hear me. And it's on? Okay. So, I'm so glad to be here tonight to be talking about making in math and making en math, because without math, making just wouldn't be possible. So let me begin by discussing all the important concepts and foundational concepts we need to make in math for deep understanding so that we can apply math in making. We need to have students make important benchmark numbers of 5 and 10. Understanding how numbers are related to these special numbers is an important step in students' development of number sense and place value. We need to have students make array models so that they have an understanding of the multiplication algorithm. We want mathematics to make sense for our students, and we want every student and every teacher to truly believe that math is supposed to make sense. We also want our students to make mistakes. Mistakes are a part of math. Mathematicians make mistakes. Passing from mistake to truth is the doing of mathematics. We need to teach students to make the most of the knowledge and experience they gain by figuring out their mistakes. Making's all throughout math. We need to make math meaningful. We need to make math moments that matter. We need to make math real, make math visual, make math make sense, and make math both challenging and fun. But we also need to make a plan. When students are learning to problem solve, they need to make a plan, they need to understand the problem, make the plan, carry out the plan, and then look back. When problem solving, students make conjectures and they justify solutions. Students develop and apply reasoning skills to make mathematical conjectures. When solving problems, the math just makes more sense. A problem-solving approach provides the teacher with better insights into students' mathematical thinking. We need to have students make connections between mathematics and other subjects and disciplines. We also need to have students make connections between related math concepts. In the intermediate grades and above, students represent patterns algebraically, and they use these representations to make predictions and to make inferences. There are so many things for students to make in math. They can make graphs, they can make models, make patterns, make a table of values, make different shapes, make three-dimensional figures, make concrete representations of their thinking. And number talks are so important in mathematics. Number talks and number strings are flexible instructional routines that can lead to conjecturing and generalizing. Number talks are a great way to build students' number sense. Making thinking visible is also extremely important in mathematics. It occurs when we access how students think as they explore mathematical activities. We're then provided with insights into the students' thinking, and in addition, students are enabled to access the thinking of others. We need to make technology available for our students. Students need to have access to programs and websites to assist with their understanding in math. Math programs like Knowledge Hook, Desmos, Gizmos, Equatio, and virtual reality. Immersion in virtual reality provides opportunities for students to improve their spatial abilities. It helps them connect with material they are learning in a way that's never been possible before. Maker-centered thinking can be applied in traditional content areas such as mathematics, art, science, music, and geography, just to name a few. The act of making can be used to reveal student thinking and understanding. It's the application of knowledge. We need to develop learners for many jobs that don't yet exist. We need to help prepare students for their future, and we need to use tools, resources, and applications that can be used to enhance student learning and develop their lifelong learning skills. Coding is really important for skills for students to use in mathematics and to learn in mathematics. There are several robotics resources that are now available for students to use. Ozobots, Spheros, EV3s, and they can be used in math to make sense and learn more about shapes, measurements, angles, rotations, and data management. We need to allow our students to tackle open problems. They must tinker with mathematics, make leaps, ask questions, share their ideas, and handle frequent failures, and we must make them feel safe and encouraged to do so. Maker culture emphasizes learning through doing in a social environment. Maker culture emphasizes informal, networked, peer-led, and shared learning motivated by fun and self-fulfillment. This is also how we need to teach math, and math is very much a part of the maker movement. As Tracy Johnson-Zager said in her book, people aren't born disliking math, they learn to dislike it in school. Our math classes can and should be vibrant social communities where we can equip them to enjoy mathematics all of their lives and make math fun.
I don't know if anyone knows how this works, but what it is, an Ignite talk is 20 slides in 5 minutes, so it's timed, 15 seconds per slide. So you can imagine it might be just a little bit stressful for some folks. So you just go ahead and press the forward button when you're ready to go. It's all timed, so you got to keep that pace going. All right, I'd like to introduce the second speaker for this evening. Despite the fact that I haven't connected with Lisa Floyd in real life for quite some time, it's rare that a day goes by where Lisa and I haven't been connected by a tweet or some other post on social media. This is how I know I'm keeping good company. Lisa is an advocate for introducing students and teachers to the world of coding. She's a computational thinking in math and science education instructor in the Bachelor of Arts program at Western University, for which she has received an award for excellence in teaching in an undergraduate program. Lisa has her master's in mathematics education and likes to consider research and evidence-based practices while integrating coding ideas across all subject areas. She loves to share her passion for creative coding and digital making tools with students and teachers at school districts and educational conferences. Lisa is a co-host for the TVO Teach Ontario Coding and Computational Thinking in the Classroom Hub, and has many years of experience teaching secondary computer science, math, science, experiential learning in TVDSB, where she is currently teaching part-time at Lord Dorchester Secondary School. This evening, Lisa will talk about how we can nurture creativity to ensure our students have the basics in order to create with an authentic purpose and come up with ideas they never thought possible. Lisa?
That's it?
Okay, for some reason I thought I could do this without notes, but I'm going to try. But I kind of have a cheat thing on my phone here.
Get a little countdown.
Okay, tell me when.
It'll say you get like 15. You get a bonus.
Okay. Thanks for the kind words. Okay, the stars we are given, the constellations we make. This quote by Rebecca Solnit is sort of what I'm going to be presenting about tonight. But first I'm going to share with you a video of two of my children from one morning not too long ago. Oh yeah, the sound is kind of important. So they're sneaking up to something. I'll explain that. So what's happening in the video is I was going to be doing a coding presentation in BC with some teachers, and I wanted to learn something new. So I was programming the microbit that you see here, as well as the motion sensor in the speakers, and I made it so that when it sensed their movement, it would set an alarm off. So it was setting the alarm off for them. And as each kid came down the stairs in the morning, the alarm would go off, and it would scare them. They were really curious about this, and so they looked at it a little bit closer, and as they wanted to know what it could be used for. And as they were looking at it, Max, my middle son, suddenly stopped and froze and said, I know what this is. It's a Santa scanner. He can put this out on Christmas Eve, and we will know when Santa's here, and we can run downstairs and see him. So then they started holding it up around the family room to see where the best place would be to put it. But then Max started to have some hesitation. He said, well, what if Santa gets upset with us for startling him and gives us coal for Christmas? Well, Charles, my youngest, wasn't having this. He did not want to have coal for Christmas. Thankfully, my oldest son, Cohen, had done some programming with the microbit before, and so what he suggested is we code one microbit attached to a motion sensor in the family room to set off a signal to a second microbit in their bedrooms to tell us when Santa was there. And so that's what we did for the rest of the morning. Now, I had shared some code and a device with my kids, and for Max it became a Santa scanner. But for other kids, it might become a Halloween candy protector, or perhaps a security alarm. Not only that, but they remixed the code and came up with their own creative elements for it. So we have lots of devices around our house, and you know, sometimes they're interested in them. But in this case, they saw it hooked up, and they saw its potential, and they were really excited about it. So as teachers and parents, we might ask ourselves, how can we nurture creativity? It seems that with the guidelines and curriculum and so many rules that we have to follow, that we might actually end up stifling creativity. What the Makerspace movement allows is to help us learn and be creative. The way we set up these environments, the way we encourage students to work in these environments, it might naturally afford them to be more creative. So sometimes I hear people say, you know, just dive right in. Just tell your students to go create. And for sure, there's definitely benefits of tinkering and making discoveries on your own. But at some point, we have a responsibility to get our students to learn about the tools and the processes and the skills, so that then they can learn that they can create something that they never would have imagined before. They can also learn from experts, and those experts might be the teacher, their parents, someone from the community, or even someone from YouTube. STEM and technology gives us new ways to be creative, and we're creating things faster than ever before. We do have to keep in mind, however, Although technology has many affordances for our student learning and to improve our lives, humans are unique from machines in that we have the ability to be creative. Now, this idea of combining creativity and technology isn't new. We have, in a second, Ada Lovelace. So Ada Lovelace is known by many to be the world's first computer programmer, a woman, and she wrote an algorithm over 200 years ago. She was intrigued by a machine that her friend Charles Babbage made. She believed that machines such as this one could not only solve mathematical problems as it was originally designed to do, but could also have those ideas in music and art. Now, her father was a mathematician, and her father was actually a poet, and it was her mother who was a mathematician, so she saw value in using our imaginations to solve problems in mathematics and engineering. She called this blend of mathematical thinking and our imaginations poetical science. So we can use the maker movement and technology to foster creativity, but we have to make sure we're helping our students to see the stars, the skills, and the processes, so that then they can make the constellations, come up with their own ideas and creative solutions. Thank you.
When educators in TVDSB schools are looking for awesome ideas, I often suggest that they check out the Twitter feeds of various educators that I hold in the highest of regards. One such educator is Leslie Robinson. Leslie is a teacher librarian at TVDSB. She is here to talk to you about a special project that took place in her Makerspace last year, called Makersville, which had a significant impact on the making culture in her school. Leslie?
Okay, thank you very much, David, and it's a great honor for me to be invited here tonight to talk to you all about my story of building a making culture at my school. I am a teacher librarian, and I have to tell you, I have the best job in the entire school board. I came into this role about 2.5 years ago, and I was asked to transition our traditional library into a library learning commons. So according to the Leading Learning document, the task before me was to try and create the learning hub of our school, a space where students could engage in problem-based learning and inquiry projects, and a place where everyone was a teacher and everyone was a learning, working together towards excellence. Whoa, where do you begin? Well, we began by dismantling our computer lab and creating a space that we called our Makerspace. And we stocked it with donations from the community, everything from pipe cleaners to glue guns. And I started inviting classes into the space to participate in a variety of STEM challenges. We spent a lot of time talking about what a challenge is versus a competition. We started talking about the design thinking process, and we quickly learned the concept of fail to mean a first attempt in learning. It was also at this time that I was privileged to meet our incredible instructional coach, Mr. Ryan Mathews, and he spent a lot of time that first year building my toolbox. He taught me how to use iStop motion, green screen, and a variety of other making tools that became integral in our making projects in the future. But it bothered me there was a lot of time when the space sat empty, and I was always looking for ways to drop more people in. I got an idea inspired on Twitter, where students had built a city, and I thought maybe this is a way that we can get multiple grades involved and we can easily see a lot of curriculum connections. So we started by inviting a team of grade 7 and 8s to meet with an urban planner, Nicholas Bogart, who generously gave up his time to come and meet with us and teach us about planning a city. We started inviting classes to build houses for us in some of the essential buildings. We had a group come down and use paper mache to make these Hollywood-esque Makersville hills for us, and a monument was built for the center of our town. As these things started to pop up in the space, students coming into the library could see this, and they were starting to ask questions and like, hey, how can I get involved in that? So we created a Google form that we sent out to the students so that they could request request things that they would like to make with our city. It was then that we found our resident electricians. They came in and they learned how to wire circuits and switches and the makey to make these interactive points in our city. We had a group of engineers come in and build a hydraulic bridge for us. They had a lot of patience. We only had about 2 major floods. We had a group come in and plant trees, our landscaping crew. They built a dog park and a golf course for us. And another group, our roads crew, coated the roads so that we had self-driving vehicles. At the end of May, our project was finished. We celebrated with an opening ceremony with ribbon cutting and cake. And we reflected on our work. And it was clear to me, what wasn't clear to me is that some of the great learning that was still to come, because the remaining weeks of the school year, we invited classes to come and interact with Makersville. And they used the Ozobots to explore cardinal directions. They took pictures of their favorite parts and shrunk themselves down into Makersville using the green screen, kind of like a scene from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Our final project involved one of our making teams. They filmed the destruction of Makersville in the form of a newscast. So it was clear our project had been a success, and this September, kids came into school saying, "Ms. Robertson, can I be involved in Makersville?" But we decided to take a different approach. I made a board outside the space where students can post the things that they would like to make. Our first project was making slime. You wouldn't be surprised. But since then, we have built a scooter parking lot. We've had a community member come in and teach us how to cross-stitch. So what have I learned through this journey? Well, number one, you have to take risks. I am not a skilled builder, an electrician, or an urban planner. But I've become very comfortable not being the expert in the room and the facilitator of opportunities. And that's why collaboration is so important. Without the partnerships between amazing colleagues and community members and the students, none of these projects would have happened. It's important that we listen to student voice. We need to find out what our kids are passionate about and what they actually want to make, and then provide them with that opportunity. And finally, the most important message that I've learned in the past 2.5 years is that making is a mindset and not a space. And it is okay that sometimes our maker space sits empty, because if you were to walk through the halls of Mountsfield on any given day and peek into the classrooms, you would see students engaged in making activities. Because they understand that they see themselves as inventors and innovators and creative thinkers, and they understand that we honor that about them, and that we will provide them with opportunities to pursue their passions and their learning in that way. And of the words of Laura Fleming from her Worlds of Making book, if we build it, they will come, but if they build it, they will learn. Thank you.
Fantastic, and a huge shout out to Ryan as well. Ryan Mathews, the instructional coach. Okay, our next, FD Roosevelt is a TVDSB school that has been on my radar for a number of years, and for a number of reasons. The administration and staff at this school have worked hard to establish a culture of empathy, perseverance, and innovation. However, one characteristic that is the most clearly evident at this school is risk-taking. Kirsten Warna is a teacher at FD Roosevelt, and she is a risk-taker. Her presence here this evening clearly demonstrates this fact, as well as the notion that growth is sometimes contingent on putting yourself voluntarily in situations that may be uncomfortable, even frightening. Kirsten will be speaking about her classroom makerspace experiences in kindergarten through grade 3, and will be discussing how to utilize project-based learning as a way to uncover curriculum connections. Kirsten?
So as Dave mentioned, my name is Kirsten Rona. I'm a grade 3 teacher at FD Roosevelt here in Thames Valley. And today I'm going to be talking about the whys and hows of setting up your own classroom makerspace and how you can still be meeting those curriculum expectations. So growing up, I was fortunate enough to be in a family of makers, whether it was watching my dad create his own kayak carrier in this pretty awesome playhouse that my grandpa made for me, I was always surrounded by making, and I learned to love it. Picasso said that every child's an artist, but the problem is staying an artist when you grow up. My experiences in kindergarten only furthered my love for making, as I was constantly surrounded by creative thinking through inquiry and play-based learning. When considering diving into Makerspace in your own classroom, there's 4 things that I'd like to consider. Number 1, make it meaningful. There's definitely value in tinkering and playing around with different maker tools, but we want to make sure that as educators we are making the most of our time with our students, so we want to be focusing on the skills that we want them to develop. The global competencies are skills that we want students to have going into their future. So as I'm planning different making experiences, I want to be thinking, did I give them a chance to collaborate? Did they have a chance to communicate different ways? Are they reflecting on their learning, problem solving, and thinking creatively? Most importantly, are they learning to be a global citizen? So are they making those real world connections and leaving a positive digital footprint while using technology? And a way to do this is design thinking. So design thinking is a process that asks students to begin by empathizing before making. By providing opportunities for students to practice empathy, we won't just be encouraging maker skills, we'll be inspiring difference makers of tomorrow. So this is a project that my grade 3 students worked on, where they were asked to build a structure to help somebody. They were building bridges for animals to cross over highways, they made sloth sanctuaries, hospitals, and they were starting to think about the big ideas in the science curriculum, those impacts on society and the environment. So they're also creating projects with solar panels, rainwater harvesting, and windmills. Which leads me to curriculum connections. Curriculum is often seen as a set of expectations that we have to rigidly follow. Instead, we should be focusing on uncovering the curriculum through purposeful projects. Project-based learning allows us to do this, so that we can learn all the things in a more efficient way. This is an example of a project that the grade 2s did. We started with Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. They were asked to design a product to help clean up the town after all that food had fallen. Using the literacy connections there, they had town hall debates, persuasive writing, they had to create articles about their different projects. There's always those math connections. Finding the math in different structures, finding angles, shapes, perimeter, using digital floor plans, and we used place value blocks, and they had to calculate the value of their home using those. The tech connections, going on digital field trips using Google Expeditions or Google Earth, creating Google websites so that they can share their learning of inquiries, and using things like Autobots to show travel characters. Most importantly, you want to make sure that they're reflecting on their learning. So again, we talked about the global competencies. My students were always doing self-assessments with those global competencies. And even in their projects with their websites, they embedded feedback forms so that they could have peer assessment as well. So, rule number 3, embrace your inner hoarder. So, we talked about the why of Makerspaces, but how about the how? If I want to go ahead with a Makerspace, it sometimes can cost a lot of money. So, that's where you need to start embracing your inner hoarder and collect all those materials. So, asking families to donate materials they don't need anymore. My personal family donates a lot, but even things like marker lids, containers, wood pieces, and straws and pipe cleaners make perfect connects. Finally, let go. As educators and families, we often feel that we need to be the experts in the room when we need to let the students take some ownership. So we need to make sure that we're giving them opportunities to explore on their own. We do not need to have all the answers. Education begins the moment we see children as innately wise and capable beings. Only then can we play along in their world. We need to give those students that opportunity. So to recap, you want to develop a maker's mindset. As Leslie said, it's not just a space, it's a mindset. Make it meaningful, uncover the curriculum, embrace your inner order, and learn to let go. Finally, maybe the goal is not to put a makerspace in a school, maybe it's to put kids in the kind of environment that brings out the makerspace in them. Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Passionate, innovative, learner, risk taker, and reflective. These are some of the words that come to mind as I introduce our next speaker. Dubois is a primary junior teacher and instructional coach who explored the importance of capturing student voice during a one-to-one iPad action research project last year. Tonight, he's sharing the power of engaging kids in design thinking and digital creation as they solve problems and see themselves reflected as citizens in the community. Jay?
This is the worst part.
We put yours to 40
So one day I was finding myself teaching grade 3, and sometimes being in a classroom feels like being in a box. It just doesn't feel like something that's real. So I wanted my students to uncover curriculum in a way that was more interesting, outside of the four walls of the classroom. I wanted a project where my kids could make. And it just so happened that the local public library was in a consultation phase of rebuilding a part of their library. So I thought, could I cover math, literacy, science, media with a library redesign project? Definitely. So I was sold. So lightning bolt hit me. I thought, what if we harness the power of technology to document a design thinking process from beginning to end with kids, right? So think of all the digital making possibilities that we could weave into that to cover our curriculum. So the project was born. And the slides went backwards. So I'm going to wait at the whoa slide again here. Okay, that one. Whoa. Yes, it was 45 seconds. You did check. So the project was born. So kids as innovators and entrepreneurs. So my students would need a few months, right? We're going to introduce them to the ideas of design thinking. Definitely a lot of crash course work in collaboration and creativity. But we were ready to jump in with 2 feet and give it a try. So here's how you start. You empathize with the user. If there's one thing kids can do, it's be empathetic. And imagine their distress when they learn that at their current public library, users in wheelchairs cannot actually fit between the shelves. So iPad photos were taken and notes were made, and we came back to the classroom and it seemed very obvious that we could do better. So we were given groups in particular library capacities, and we created engineering companies to solve some of these problems. Our design mantra, always visualize users of all ages and abilities. We also know that you work so much harder when you're inspired. So I leaned on my mentor at Western to put together a field trip that would be unlike one the kids have ever done before, or probably ever will do. And I wanted them to be both motivated, but visionary too. So imagine my students dressing up in matching shirts, driving in from Elmer, pretending to be university students for a day. The vice provost greeted us in the president's office. We got to look in corners and under desks in the Makerspaces at the library, and visited the robotics lab where real makers are solving real-world problems right in front of our eyes. So these rich experiences, the kids were able to come back to the classroom and ready for the fun part. So crowdsourcing ideas, digging into the images and the notes that they'd taken, brainstorming together. As a class, we dug into research. We explored opportunities for making things better. We created vision decks for our new companies. The sky was the limit, and really with the kids, the energy did feel real for a change. Visions came to life in the form of blueprints and really slick digital app smash products that they would populate their engineering firm websites with. So these designer kids created with imagination and a big healthy dose of fun on the side. So the idea of creating a legit company website was met with whoops and cheers. So in reality, websites an electronic portfolio for kids to house all their digital makings. So what a wealth of information for the teacher to assess. For the kids, it's just fun. But this super serious photo shoot was just a touch of authenticity. So we continued to empathize with the user, and we actually used alt text to make all of our images on our sites AODA compliant. And we also wanted to ensure that all the users in our future space would be safe. So hence the oodles of do not touch the drones warning signs and things like that. Students worked on branding their organizations because we all know that really cool companies have really slick logos and some great letterhead. So their branding would appear on their business cards, their websites, and their commercials. Then it's Shark Tank time. So each team created a 3-slide elevator pitch that was supposed to sell their engineering firm. We focused on audience and purpose. They sold their brands, but really they learned how to communicate. The business trade show event was held, and that included parents and school leaders and representatives from the library. As students walked everyone through their websites and their elevator pitches, you can see them beaming just with pride. And as professionals, we asked for some digital feedback after all of our users had left the event. But really, we know that makers self-assess. So makers reflect on their own process, and they're always ready to go back and make something even better if they're given the chance. So just thinking feedback and iterations and moving forward. So these kids, they created, they produced ideas, they did it digitally, but they did it collaboratively and for a real purpose. So designer kids are makers. And I just want to kind of mention the design thinkers in this class were a bunch of 8-year-olds. When I think about what they did and what they can do when they're 10, they're 12, they're 16, and they're given time to use a design thinking process to make a difference, it's exciting. So how are we as educators making? We make in our classrooms by giving students a purpose, we nurture their innovation, we introduce students to the process of creating. But I think most importantly as teachers, we need to celebrate designer kids. Thank you.
I've known Steve Floyd for nearly as long as I've known his wife, Lisa. Steve is a computer science teacher and computer engineering teacher for the London District Catholic School Board. In 2017, Steve received the award for teaching excellence from the Computer Science Teachers Association. Tonight, you'll hear Steve speak passionately about his mission to introduce computer science to all students. Steve?
You get a minute, Steve.
Minute? This is like the top of the roller coaster. Just about to be click, click, click. But I'm going to talk about coding tonight, so I was Makerspaces. We're going to talk a little bit about coding. I was initially going to call this Why Our Children Should Code, and then I thought it's an Ignite talk, I'll throw in some jokes, so I was going to call it 5 hilarious jokes about why our children should code, and then I realized these jokes, once I had written them, they weren't all that funny. So these are 5 potentially humorous statements related to why our kids should code. So I know a student he's about 25 right now. He's looking for a job, and he went out and he applied for a job in Australia because he wanted to be a zookeeper. But he wasn't successful in getting that job because he didn't have the right qualifications. So now he's looking at getting a job as a mirror inspector. He wants to go around inspecting mirrors because it's the type of career that he can really see himself in. Thanks there. The point is, one of the reasons we should teach our children to code is quite simply because of jobs. So our young children will one day obviously need jobs. There's already a shortage of highly skilled ICT workers in Canada, and this shortage is expected to get bigger. Computer programming, data analysts, computer engineers, they are in short supply. On top of that, if these students don't grow up to be computer engineers or computer programmers, coding forms the basis of a number of current and emerging technologies that have influenced all fields of work. So simple web searches, but also artificial intelligence and other things are going to be impacting all the jobs. Okay, joke number 2. So my son is in class the other day, and his teacher says, Charles, come on over, I'm going to teach you, see if you know math. So she says, Charles, you have $1, and then you go and ask your dad for another $1. How many dollars do you have? And Charles says, well, I have $1. And she says, oh, Charles, you don't know math. And he says, no, miss, you don't know my dad. Thank you. So the point is that students can start to see problems from a different angle. They can become experimental and exploratory learners. So coding can allow children to see things differently. Rather than learning to code, our students can start to code in order to learn something else. So coding can be a source of power that helps us figure things out in a dance between the computer and our thoughts. So they can learn science, mathematics, and other things. Children can use coding as a context in which to learn about math, science, art, and other subject areas. They can do dynamic modeling, reverse engineering. They can break things, wonder why this system broke, and then package them together again. Joke number 3. So there is a cow that created this wonderful piece of art, and he wanted to show it to the world. Where would a cow go to show off his art? To a museum. Nice. Read my notes. Coding can serve as a creative outlet. So students can become creative participants in a digital world. Computational fluency goes beyond just problem solving, and it highlights the importance of children's creativity and expression. So like paint, like markers, like glitter, these are tools that allow students to be creative. Not only that, this concept of computational participation allows children to share their projects, remix projects of others, and so they become participants in the digital world. They're not just passive consumers, they're actually contributing to this digital world, and they feel that they have a place in this digital world early. Joke number 3 or number 4, doesn't really matter. Let's talk about developing computational thinkers. So a computer programmer is going to the grocery store, and her husband says, get a loaf of bread. If they have eggs, then get a dozen. So she comes back 30 minutes later, and he says, what's going on? You have 12 loaves of bread. And he says, yeah, they had eggs. Get a loaf of bread. If they have eggs, get a dozen. This is an example of thinking like a computer scientist. This isn't the best example, but computational thinking involves the thought processes in formulating problems so their solutions can be represented as computational steps, and some feel it's a universally applicable skill that all our children should learn. Computational thinking involves concepts like decomposing problems, algorithm design, logical thinking, and so if you think in the real world, something like booking flights, parking, getting a taxi, booking hotels on a trip, at some point this involves computational thinking and ordering the process. Last one. So René Descartes is a famous philosopher. He said, I think, therefore I am. In other words, we exist because we think. And so he's walking around the streets of Paris. He decides he'd like some wine, so he stops in at a cafe. And the waiter has this wonderful bottle of champagne, but René Descartes can't believe the price. So he says, at that price, I think not, and then he vanished. The point is, there are some who feel that when we teach our students to code and they begin to do computational thinking, they actually become epistemologists. So in teaching the computer how to think, children can begin to consider how they themselves think. They can consider other ways of thinking, and they can start to think when one certain way of thinking is appropriate and when another way of thinking might be appropriate. So those are 5 reasons why I think our children should code. Thank you very much for your sympathetic laughs, or maybe they were genuine. Thank you very much.
We're all set for our final speakers for this evening. For those of us who spend significant time on Twitter, connecting with others and growing our professional learning networks, we tend to get really excited when the opportunity presents itself to connect in real life. Approximately 3 years ago, one of these real-life connections presented itself at a PD session I was running. This was the first time I met Laura Briscoe, and by extension, Jenny Van Kesteren. Laura is a teacher at Oak Ridge Secondary School, Global Competencies Facilitator, and recent recipient of the Prime Minister Award for Teaching Excellence. Jenny is also a teacher at Oak Ridge Secondary School, a math coach, and a student achievement leader. Together, Laura and Jenny are reinventing math and visual arts instruction through their unique pedagogical approach. Their talk this evening will take you on their journey towards improving student understanding and well-being through the combination of art and math. Laura and Jenny?
Okay, so hi everyone, I'm Laura. I'm Jenny Van Kesteren, and we are team teaching art and math. And I'm kind of the art half of art and math, but we like to say now that it's blended when we're together so people don't really know the difference. I always say that Laura has learned a lot more math and become more confident in her math than I have in my art abilities, but there's definitely a lot of transference happening between the two subject areas there. And so together we started this art and math program where students are getting their grade 9 open level arts credit along with their math credits. And last year we offered this at the grade 9 level. This year in first semester we opened that up to grade 10s. So we have students together for the whole morning, and as Laura mentioned, they're working towards either their grade 9 or grade 10 open visual arts credit, and students have the opportunity to work towards their math credit either as the applied or the academic stream. This allowed students who are coming into grade 9 especially, who didn't know which pathway was right for them, to sort of pick one and then make changes if they needed to later in the semester without having to change their entire timetable and become a new group of students. Something about art that I say is always really exciting to me is there's not one right answer that you're working towards. So when we're talking about makerspaces, the students get to investigate their math in a visual way and therefore gain a deeper understanding of it. So we have an example of an artwork here, and we always encourage our students to look at their art first for the artistic and what they wanted to create, and then to sort of look at it with another lens, with that math lens on. So we've kind of highlighted some of those areas there where you can see shapes and lines and parabolas. And this is where they come in with a blank slate that wasn't supposed to be there. And we find that with that openness, but their ability to craft and work on projects, they're using their whole brain. So sometimes you're thinking this left brain, right brain focus, In art and math, we like to say that they're engaging those transferable skills with code.
At the end of our semester, we surveyed some students, and 87% of our students said that the art and math program helped them to better understand math concepts. So we were able to gather that information from them. Part of the motivation for me in starting this program is 2 years ago, I did some research through a teacher learning and leadership grant with the province of Ontario, and our results found that working in collaboration helps students retain information longer. They actually did better on their final exam. So we like that this program offers lots of opportunity for collaboration.
And on a pedagogical standpoint, for teachers to get to work together, you're really starting to reassess your approaches when you have another professional in the room. You're no longer isolated, you're getting feedback, and you're looking at your own curriculum in a different way, with a different lens. And you're now starting to get rid of those pockets and allow students to make those connections outside of those silos. So here, we took the students on a field trip, and people ask, because we have a larger group, to justify 2 teachers, we have to have enough spaces and enough students for us to be together. So sometimes we use the cafeteria and different locations to make that happen.
Here's an example of a student who did some art and then analyzed the math, and just that, to kind of drive home that idea that it is individualized and students are analyzing their own information.
Oftentimes too in math, things are isolated. You're doing your math project on your textbook. You're not investigating, you're not as engaged. But when it's on your own artwork, and then there's gallery walks happening, you're now learning from one another rather than just your own isolated question that you had to do for homework.
And in this community that we have together, because we have them for the full morning, and in the case of the grade 10s, we had them for a second year, we really do feel like we built a sense of culture with these students, which helped build their confidence, and they expressed that it also helped give them an emotional and mental break from the math, which reduced some of that anxiety that a lot of students do feel around math.
And it was interesting to ask them why they took the program in the first place and then how they felt when they left. So decreasing, for me as an art teacher, I've had students say that they're so stressed out and they feel like they're not smart enough to get the concepts in math, but really they're just not looking at it in a way that makes sense to them. So by interacting it with those things, they're learning the same things and they're just learning them in a different way.
So we were able to cover all of the curriculum expectations in both courses, just presenting it and giving them an opportunity to do that in a different way, which also incorporates a lot of the global competencies that some other people have mentioned.
And a shout out to the global competencies, and I know a number of people have already mentioned it, but when you combine these subjects together, it's not just about the subject anymore, it's about the big picture learning and skills that they're developing. So those leadership skills when they're working with others, collaboration, problem solving, innovation, all those different things are the result when you start looking at things and teaching them through project-based learning and makerspaces.
And those are the skills that we know are best for our students as they're going out into the real world. So that subject-specific information is important, but developing those skills is also important.
We also love to celebrate our students on Twitter and Instagram, and they get excited when their work has been selected to be the one of the discussion point. So making them feel that what they're doing matters and it moves beyond the walls of the classroom. So you can find us on social media, and also we've created a website where we are sharing our strategies and resources.
And we really feel like 5 minutes is not enough time to talk to you about everything, so we hope that you'll come join us at the breakout session afterwards, or touch base with us in one of the ways that we mentioned already.
And we can have 15 more seconds, I think. But yes, thank you for coming, and again, if you have any questions, we're happy to chat with you over there.
Awesome, thanks so much. So everyone, that concludes like the Ignite portion of our talk. So thank you so much again to all the speakers. For those of you who don't know, like we had a lot of people like reach out to us like, how much are you paying each one of these speakers to come to your events? Because sometimes it's hard to really procure such like a great list. We can't extend like enough thank yous and applause of like how you're using your own time and coming out and really building capacity, not only within the schools and both different boards and amongst Western, but also amongst the community as well. And there's community partners here and kids, and with a lot of the research coming out about age of onset and gender equity and really promoting these ideals at first hand, we are so grateful and so appreciative that you're doing this out of your own time and busy schedule. So can't say that enough. I really hope that comes through. Second part, the fun part. Just kidding, that was the fun part. We do have some, again, food and snacks. Take a 5-minute break before we get started into where we're going to go into sessions. So there are breakout sessions that are stated around the area. And we thought it'd be better to have kind of a flexible learning environment, which kind of embodies the entire maker movement. So what we would ask that you do, you can go to any station that you would like, but if one is overly busy, can you please try to go to a different station first, and then we'll let you notice when we're gonna actually switch and rotate to the different stations. So we'll be doing these in about 10-minute-ish intervals, and we'll let you know throughout. And this is just a fun time to ask any questions you have about these teachers, the programs they're offering, and what other things that you're doing, and hope that you can use as resources. I don't think I missed anything else. Immaculate, did I miss anything? If you want to hear some more jokes, Steve is back there. The after event is at Yuck Yucks just down the street. So Steve is headlining that actually. He was just practicing. Give him more time. But thank you for that part, and we will give about 5 minutes, and then we will get right back and started, okay? Awesome. So get up, get around, washrooms, drinks,